They have promised, Jonathan, that this next term, the Trump second term, they will have people there who will execute every one of Trump's orders and demands. And they have promised we will not miss next time. Right. We will find our targets and we will throw them in jail.
And that includes Morning Joe.
It's like a delusional little badge of honor that they've invented in their demented minds. Joe Scarborough and the little circle fest there, the gang of wankers in the hot tub at Morning Joke. That's right, next time they won't miss. Well, I'm sorry, they didn't put you guys in jail. You lefties are trying to put everybody in jail. Isn't Steve Bannon in jail? Peter Navarro just got out of jail. He was accused of doing what Hunter Biden has done again and again, defying a congressional subpoena. Peter Navarro had presidential immunity to at least debate, working for the president at the time and everything, but they put him in jail. Steve Bannon, I think, is still in jail because the Democrats don't like him, and they don't like Donald Trump. And the Democrats are not democratic at all. They're leftists, and leftists all over the world put their political enemies in jail. And the leftists have come to America. We call them the Democratic Party, knowing that they're not. Well, happy Friday to you, and welcome. Sorry, that soundbite took me by surprise there coming out of the gate for this hour. Remarkable times. And Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren of California asked on MSDNC by Nicole Wallace if she's making sure that her passport is up to date in case she has to flee the country because she's a member of Congress and she was on the January 6th committee, which was a sham, a scam, a put on. It's an eminence front. And honestly, the people at MSNBC, do you have your passport? Because you're going to have to flee the country, to flee the law. And they're conspiring. I think that Nicole Wallace and Zoe Lofgren should be arrested today on conspiracy charges violating the RICO statutes. They're plotting to violate the law.
I wonder, as the polls appear pretty close, if you've done anything to prepare for that, if you've retained counsel or updated your passport, or if you're doing anything differently.
They really are just wretched, pathetic, dim-witted, very, very unintelligent people, unserious people. And one's a member of Congress. The other is a former Republican political operative, the anchor woman at MSDNC. It was McCain, half Democrat most of the time. And I'll just keep it that generous when it comes to that. But this is crazy. And at Morning Joke, oh, no, you're a target. Based on what? What are you mental cases talking about? You need a very, very long vacation at Guantanamo Bay with the water board. I think the water board is the right thing for you. Pretty amazing stuff. Just amazing. So let's get, and then Michael Beschloss, your children will be arrested and maybe killed because Republicans took over the Senate. And they say these things on television. And then I think that, wouldn't that qualify as misinformation and disinformation? And doesn't Hillary Clinton want the government to prohibit the distribution, the spread of misinformation and disinformation? Doesn't she want rifle-toting thugs with ski masks and helmets and video cameras breaking down doors to stop what the Democrat Party deems to be misinformation and disinformation? The answer is yes. It's a rhetorical question, of course. And the Democrats, they want to crack down on free speech and the free practice of religion. If you want to say a prayer after a football game at a high school and you're the high school football coach, they'll drag you all the way to the Supreme Court to try to stop you from saying a prayer because that's what fascists and communists do. And coincidentally, that's what the Democratic Party does. One of the ways that we know that they're not democratic. Now, speaking of dim-witted Democrats, they're being praised. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are being praised by a corrupt news media because they finally made their way down to the hurricane zone, and they had a couple of photo ops and very brief and dumb things to say because just amazing. Now, Joe Biden, and I looked for this morning, I looked for the news media covering this first soundbite, and none of the media are covering it because the most insidious power the media has is the power to ignore. And our media is an extremely insidious institution. When President Trump becomes president again, really, I think the crackdown on the press, going to have to call out the military because there are so many of them. We're going to need to we're going to re-stand up FDR's Japanese internment camps because all the news media, and Zoe Lofgren. Is it Zoe or Zoe? Is it Zoe or Zoe? I think, right, we'll just call her Z Lofgren. But listen to this because Joe Biden, the news media couldn't have been more excited. Joe Biden went down, he took Air Force One down, and there were helicopters and motorcades, and hundreds of people moved to let Joe Biden have a photo op. And then Joe Biden forgot what he had done all day. It's pretty amazing stuff. It really is. But Joe Biden, he went to the post-Hurricane Helene zone, and it was really something. They had a photo op or two, and then he was flown, courtesy of the United States Air Force, aboard Air Force One, and then the United States Marine Corps aboard Marine One, back to the White House. And when he landed at the White House, aboard Marine One, he got out and he was walking into the White House where he still amazingly and inexplicably lives. But there was a reporter there, and the reporter asked a young man, asked a perfectly decent question, and Joe Biden was obviously completely confused. He had no idea what to make of the question. The guy asked him, well, what'd you think of the storm zone? And again, none of the media are covering this, but listen to this soundbite that Joe Biden gave us on the south lawn of the White House, going into the White House yesterday. And it's just amazing what he is incapable of. It's what we've been talking about for years. And they lied and they lied and they lied. And then it was found out. And then they still lied to us about it. And they act like, no, everything's fine. But here's Joe Biden landing at the White House. Again, after flying down to the hurricane zone and visiting the hurricane zone. And then apparently a couple of hours later, he had completely forgotten what he had done all day.
What do the states in the storm zone need, Mr. President?
Okay.
What do the states in the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about. They're getting everything they need. And they're very happy across the board.
I wonder which storm you mean. What? What do the people need in the hurricane zone? Huh? And he said, I wonder which. He had no idea what storm he was being asked about because his brain is completely broke.
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about.
I wondered what storm you were talking about. That's what he said. He needs to be removed from the White House today. Maybe troops. What do you think? Troops, FBI raid. He's got to be removed. Forget that 25th Amendment. It's time for SEAL Team 7. That's bigger than SEAL Team 6. Not really. There is a SEAL Team 7, but the guy he is not up to the job of being president of the United States, and he should literally be removed from the White House today. Now, the problem is that Kamala Harris is their backup quarterback. Isn't that amazing? Just extraordinary. So, Hurricane Helene victims in North Carolina are fending for themselves as response from Biden-Harris FEMA underwhelms. And that's a fact, and that's the headline in the New York Post, but the Washington Post doesn't really have anything on it at all. They're pretending everything's fine because they're a bunch of liars. Desperate residents in hurricane-ravaged western North Carolina are relying on homegrown rescue efforts instead of waiting for the Biden-Harris administration's financially depleted FEMA to get its act together. That's right, they bankrupted FEMA by giving all the money to illegal aliens, and now when a big hurricane hits in the middle of hurricane season, there's no money in the FEMA account, the FEMA coffers. Sure, not content to hold out hope that help, and there's no help coming, and they got private helicopter owners going out and rescuing people, and then they're threatening to arrest the private helicopter owners that are rescuing people. Literally, this is literally happening, all right? So not content to hold out hope for help that some fear might not arrive in time, a handful of grassroots rescue operations have sprung up to render assistance by air, land, and even on four legs. People are bringing in, they got rescued dogs, they bringing out horses, with hundreds more missing in the remote, unforgiving terrain. Amazing stuff, and communication services damaged or non-existent. Your cell phones aren't working and you haven't had electricity for a whole lot of days. Last night I looked and there were still more than 1 million people in the United States of America without electricity. And, there are military bases around there, and the Biden administration and FEMA, they have not activated the military. Ron DeSantis is doing a lot and offering Florida National Guard to other states. Some of the other states have had their National Guard deployed overseas, so their National Guard is not available. Amazing stuff. Now, local airports and a couple of regional airports there have transformed themselves into donation drop-off sites or delivery zones, and courtesy of a few dozen volunteers lending their time, critical supplies in some cases, their airplanes, to the rescue effort, and in some cases, their helicopters, too. Pretty remarkable stuff going on there. Now, what happened to the FEMA money? Well, the FEMA money has dried up because the Democrats, Joe Biden, they have forked it all over to illegal alien efforts. Now, let's go. We have more audio on this. Let's go to Kamala, because Kamala has made a very generous offer. The U.S. taxpayer will give them $750 each.
The federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like.
$750 if you need baby formula. If you need food, well, there are no grocery stores open. That's going to be a problem, isn't it? There is an extraordinary story that I just made reference to, and I talked about it on my Newsmax show last night. A volunteer firefighter who is also a certified law enforcement officer. He's also an experienced helicopter pilot, and he owns a helicopter. Gathered up his high school-age son and began flying in his helicopter, rescuing stranded families in the hardest-hit areas of North Carolina. He saw viral social media videos online of families begging for help, so he grabbed his teenage son and said, "Let's go, boy. We're getting in my helicopter. We're going to go rescue people." He located people, and he saved people. Pardon me. And that, it turns out, is a bad thing. He saved families that were begging for help, and that's good stuff, you would think, right? Then he was threatened with arrest. His name is Jordan Sidham. Jordan Sidham told the Queen City News down there, local newspaper down there, he said, "There were other victims as we were flying out, leaving the area. We spotted within 300, 400 yards. People were waving for help as my son and I were leaving. I can only imagine what the people were thinking. You've been stranded for 24, 36 hours. No way to speak with anyone. And you don't know what's going on. And you see a lifeline fly over his helicopter and him with his high school-age son. And they keep going. I can only imagine what they were thinking," said Jordan Sidham, who had his helicopter filled and, with people that he was rescuing. But he couldn't take everybody because helicopters have limited space, right? Isn't that amazing? Now, the Washington Post isn't covering that. CNN isn't covering that because they don't cover those stories. They don't cover the news. They don't report the news. They are Democrat Party front groups on cable television and pretending to be newspapers. Isn't that amazing? And I've got more for you as well. The New York Post does have the story, helicopter pilot threatened with arrest after flying rescue missions in flood-ravaged North Carolina. Amazing. That's your Democrat Party. You know, as you gear up for a back-to-school and the fall season, your feet deserve the same level of support that they had throughout your summer adventures, do they not? Introducing G-Defy shoes with VersaShock technology. Unlike ordinary brands of shoes, G-Defy shoes offer a superior shock absorption and trampoline-like energy return under your arches that can help provide relief from foot pain, from ankle pain, knee pain, even sometimes, the problem with your back going on is down in your feet. Whether you're a parent tackling a new school year, chasing after the kids, or just hustling through the daily grind like the rest of us, G-Defy shoes offer the comfort and versatility that your feet crave. My best girl and I, we have pairs of G-Defy shoes. We hiked around the city. I've talked about it before. They're great. Great shoes. Each pair also includes 2 free pairs of supportive orthotics, those inserts for your arches, and special lateral stabilizer that has been shown to improve the way you walk, your stride, the way you run. And as a listener to my humble radio broadcast, you get to enjoy a special back-to-school offer. All you have to do is visit gdefy.com, and you're going to get $20 off your order of $100 or more with the code CHRIS. That's me. Go to gdefy.com, and don't forget to use the code CHRIS for $20 off your order of $100 or more. Step into the fall season with G-Defy shoes. Visit gdefy.com today. Yeah, you go out there and you rescue people with your helicopter, and they threaten to arrest you. Our government is in a terrible place these days. Only the media might be worse. The Chicago gangs are going to have to take on the Venezuelan gangs that the Democrats brought into the country. I've got FEMA. There's this tussle going on, big argument going on. FEMA has no money. Why does FEMA have no money? Well, the reports are that they spent all the money on illegal aliens. And now some, at least, in the news media are lying about that because that's their role in our culture. I have that coming up. And your calls as well. What's going on with FEMA? Why would they threaten to arrest a man who's rescuing people off of rooftops?
Trump told his supporters the White House has no money to spend on disaster relief because it's all being spent on illegal immigrants.
They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season.
There is, of course, no evidence to support Trump's claims. That's not stopping some on the right from spreading them.
Yes, that's Morning Joke this morning, and they're spreading misinformation and disinformation. We have to send in bayonet-wielding, gun-toting loons to shut down the misinformation just like Hillary Clinton wants. Isn't that amazing? It's the old without evidence thing. In fact, Newsweek magazine has the story, too. FEMA responds to accusations money spent on migrants. It's a very poorly written headline just for openers. Newsweek magazine, they're pretending to do a fact check or something. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has responded to, quote, false, end quote, claims that money being spent on illegal migrants should be spent on disaster relief funds in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Now, wait a minute. They're responding to false claims that money being spent on illegal aliens should be spent on relief funds. Now, what's incorrect about that? If you're spending money out of FEMA's coffers for Federal Emergency Management, we have a federal emergency right now. This week, Republicans, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Donald Trump Jr., took issue with $640 million of FEMA funding allocated for assisting migrants. Now, wait a minute. So you took $640 million of FEMA money, which is not for illegal aliens, and you spent it on illegal aliens. And Newsweek magazine just admits that. They stipulate that up front. After Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said that FEMA was meeting the immediate needs. We played this soundbite, didn't we, of Alejandro Mayorkas? And this is the soundbite. It's one of the soundbites that got people going.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have.
Immediate.
We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
Isn't that fascinating? We do not have the funds to make it through the season. But Newsweek magazine left the second part of that quote out. Newsweek magazine, filthy, corrupt hacks. They said, Alejandro Mayorkas said that FEMA was, quote, meeting the immediate needs with the money we have, end quote, while adding that the agency did not have enough funding to make it through another hurricane this season. But they left out what he said, so they've twisted the facts. They butchered his quote and left the important part out in the context of this discussion, right? Isn't that amazing? And they're very angry because Governor Greg Abbott in Texas said, this is easy. Mayorkas and FEMA immediately stop spending money on illegal immigration resettlement and redirect those funds to the areas affected by the hurricane. Put Americans first. Now, Newsweek magazine has not fact-checked anything here. Donald Trump Jr. said, so FEMA is almost out of money to help with federal emergencies, you know, the FE in FEMA, because they spent almost $1 billion helping illegal immigrants over the last 2 years. And what's wrong with that? Now, that's what he said, Donald Trump Jr., and it turns out that they spent $650 million so far in 2024 for migrants, as we euphemistically refer to them. And in 2023, $363.8 million spent on settling illegal aliens in the United States. That is more than $1 billion. So what Donald Trump Jr. said is correct. But the news media, corrupt filth that they are fact-checking it and saying, well, that's not right. But it is right. And our news media, being a journalist means you're a fact checker. You're supposed to fact check everything. Every sentence, every word is supposed to be fact checked. That's the job. You're a fact checker. That's what a journalist is, just by the way. The government agency has set up a page to address these circulating rumors regarding its response to Hurricane Helene, which hit numerous East Coast states that people in the newsroom at Newsweek don't know what it is. At the end of September, killing at least 120 people. Now, here's the thing. Jasmine was just looking at the FEMA. You'll speak to Jasmine if you call in. She's wonderful. And she was just looking at the FEMA website and found that you have to go online to apply for your $750. But there are more than 1 million people without electricity last time I looked. And even if you have electricity, internet is down. But their solution is go online with the electricity you don't have, to the internet that you don't have, and fill out a FEMA form, right, with all the information that they need from you. And then they say you should have the payment of $750 deposited directly in your bank account, which you have to fill out in the form, in 10 days. In 10 days. And didn't Kamala say it's for immediate needs like food and baby formula? Won't the babies die from lack of baby formula 10 days later? And then, I'm sorry, your bank, you get the automatic deposit, but if you still don't have electricity, that's going to be an issue. And a lot of these towns that were really hard hit don't have, things aren't operating as usual. You can't go to your ATM and take out $100 and go to the grocery store, which may have been swept away and may not be open at all. But she comes out and smiles. I'm surprised she didn't cackle. And says, well, just sign and get your $750. But they gave $650 million so far this year. And last year, $363 million to illegal aliens to resettle the illegal aliens, right? All right, now let's go back to, we just played Mayorkas, number 3, Alejandro. Remarkable stuff. Now, the thing is, in January of 2023, when illegal aliens, with illegal aliens spilling in across our southern border, Mayorkas himself explained what Donald Trump Jr. said and what other terrible Republicans said who are being fact-checked, right? And here's what Mayorkas said in January of last year, of 2023.
FEMA is providing emergency food and shelter program funds to help cities around the country recover or defray the costs of non-citizen arrivals. CBP and ICE are working closely with cities to share information and coordinate the disposition of non-citizens in immigration enforcement proceedings.
All right, so ICE and FEMA, we got all these acronyms because we're the government and we're here to help. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, CBP, Customs and Border Protection. They're all these acronyms are helping and they're spending. And that was in January of last year. We now know that they spent $363.8 million from FEMA because the Democrats, Biden and Harris, created this immigration wave emergency. And so it did become an emergency. And then Mayorkas in June of this year, June of 2024, making a false claim.
FEMA is tremendously prepared. This is what we do. This is what they do. And the key here, Rebecca, is also to make sure that the communities who are potentially impacted are prepared as well. And it's not just hurricanes and wildfires, also extreme heat, which certainly some parts of the United States are already experiencing.
This guy, I got to tell you, we're gonna have to expand Guantanamo Bay when Trump takes over because they're all going, aren't they? That's he needs. We don't have any fresh water for waterboarding, so he might have to use salt water. That's the thing, because of all this. Isn't it amazing? Now, President Trump is running for re-election as president, and he's looking at what FEMA. And again, here's the headline from the New York Post. Feds say there's no money left to respond to hurricanes after FEMA spent $1.4 billion on migrants. President Trump sounding the alarm.
Well, they're doing a very bad job. They've given over $1 billion to illegal migrants that came in, and now they have no money for North Carolina, for Georgia, for South Carolina, and Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida. I think that's a disgrace. This is a country that's being run by fools.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and the Democrats and the media, they're proud of it because, you know the rest. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas set off outrage Wednesday when he told reporters the Federal Emergency Management Agency does not have the funds to see, and that's a quote, does not have the funds to see Americans through the rest of this Atlantic hurricane season after the agency spent more than $1.4 billion since the fall of 2022 to address the migrant crisis. And so they open the border, then they spend inappropriately the FEMA money on relocating and feeding and housing and clothing millions and millions of illegal aliens that they allowed into the country, including all the Venezuelan gangs that are about to be confronted by the Chicago gangs in Chicago. And when they do a good job in Chicago, when the American gangs do a good job, maybe we start moving those Chicago gangs around the country to keep dealing with the problem. What do you think? Because they're turning us into a third world country. Let's go, Brandon. Womp, womp, womp. All right, let's grab a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Ron, calling from Woodbine, Maryland. Ronaldo, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
You betcha.
I have a question, really. October 1st is the beginning of the fiscal year. How can they be broke already? It's only been 4 days.
Well, fiscal year, schmiscal year, they're spending. That's a good point, though. Shouldn't they have, because it is the beginning of the fiscal year, shouldn't their coffers have been refilled 3 days ago on October 1st? And let me ask this question, too, Ron. Why doesn't the government just use the normal calendar, the Gregorian calendar? You start the year on January 1st like everybody else. But no, their year starts on October 1st. Why? Let's just start with that. And then you're absolutely right, Ron. The fiscal year began 3 days ago, and they're already broke. What, there wasn't money allocated for FEMA starting this year? And I guess the problem is that they fill the coffers of FEMA, and the Democrats, the Biden-Harris people, just see it as a slush fund to be used for their allies that are, I guess the Mexican human smuggling cartels that the Biden-Harris people are helping out so much, bringing millions and millions of illegal aliens into the country, spreading them around the country, and then that costs an awful lot of money. So they say, well, we don't have an illegal alien slush fund. Where are we going to get the crooked money? And somebody at the table said, I know, let's declare it an emergency that we created ourselves, and we'll use the money from FEMA. And so they spend $1.4 billion from FEMA. It's FEMA money, Ron. And I know what you're thinking now. Shouldn't someone be held accountable for this? Is that what you're thinking?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I tell you, I got to make another point real quick if I can.
Of course.
My grandparents immigrated over here from Poland. Somewhere 1920s, early 30s. And when they got here, it was, welcome to America, good luck.
Right.
They didn't give them no money. They didn't give them anything. They raised 17 kids.
Wow.
Without any government assistance.
Wow. Your mother or your father is one of 17 kids?
Yeah, my mother.
That is spectacular. Good Catholics out of Poland, huh?
Yeah. My brother asked her one time how come she had so many kids. And she said, every time your grandfather had hung his pants on the bedpost, I got pregnant.
There's probably a little more to it than that, but that is amazing. That is just great. 17 kids. That is fantastic. And from Poland, wonderful. That's the great American story too. And here you are. And here you are, Ron, talking on the radio on the Chris Plant Show
American.
about why the government is so screwy.
Yeah, I can't. That's what I say. I can't understand why. If they would stop giving them free money, they might stop coming over here. Most of them.
Yeah, it'd probably cut down on the numbers. The gift baskets are an incentive. There's no doubt about that. Ron, great story, great questions, and great story. I'm happy you told me your family story too. That's great.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thanks, Ron. You too. I tell you, and he was here yesterday. A man who is the executive producer of my Newsmax television show he's in town for a couple of days, and he came into the radio studio yesterday, and his story is an absolutely amazing story, his family story. He's one of 11 kids. They're good Catholics too. I think mostly Italian. He's one of 11 kids. His mother is also one of 11 kids. One of 11 kids. His grandmother is still alive, 92 years old. She has 76 grandchildren and 135 great-grandchildren. And she's having coffee and reading the papers right now as we speak. Now, them is some good Catholics there. We are at 888-630-9625.
I got 4 kids, 5 grandkids. Come on. I'm an expert.
Okay. Yeah, well, we're from the government and we're here to help. A saying that lives on and on and on. Tongue-in-cheek mockery. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Christine, calling from Charleston, South Carolina. Christine, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to comment on the Hurricane Helene efforts in North Carolina specifically. I think I read from the Gateway Pundit, I think it was, that Biden authorized 1,000 active military personnel to support the delivery of aid to those Western North Carolina communities. But Democrat Governor Roy Cooper still hasn't written up the mission orders that the troops need in order to be deployed. So it's important because I'm from North Carolina originally. So those mountain counties are all Republican. And so, rubber-faced Roy Cooper is in no hurry to help those folks. And I think honestly, I think it's election interference. And Trump needs those mountain votes to win North Carolina. And frankly, so does Mark Robinson and all the rest of the down ballot Republicans. So I think it's a lot worse than, I don't know, I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but it's a lot worse than just surface what we're seeing.
Well, there are you're not sowing a conspiracy theory. You might be forgiven for being a little bit cynical at this point in our history, I can say, and not being blindly trusting of government officials everywhere who seem to be drunk with power, or the lust for power at least. And when you have a Democrat governor who thinks that the area afflicted may be loaded with Trump voters, with Republican voters, which apparently is the case in a number of instances in the region, I just wouldn't put it past any Democrat elected official to not cynically and coldly do the political thing instead of the human thing. And that's what you're talking about, right, Christine? Yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's exactly right. It's I can't believe we're seeing this in our country, but then again, after all of this time under the Biden regime, I shouldn't be so surprised.
Well, and you're right. 1,000 troops out of Fort Liberty, which is formerly known as Twitter, right? That's the that was Fort Bragg, right? That was Fort Bragg.
That's right.
And they renamed it because they're going through and erasing the names of Democrats everywhere. Because every Democrat a racist, and every Democrat pot. And 1,000 troops from Fort Liberty, they're waiting to deploy to Western North Carolina. They're ready to go. It's it matters, but we've got a lot of bad leaders.